Hello folks, this is David Hurley of davidhurleyinjapan.com, and today I want to report on a game of chess I played on Wednesday the 23rd of January 2019 against my regular chess partner Dr. M. In this game we both had 30 minutes on the clock with no increment, and I was playing as white and Dr. M therefore as black. I opened with d4 and black responded with d5, so I answered in the second move with c4, and black countered with knight to f6, and this is the martial defense. In this situation, the most common follow-up move is, or the third move is, that c takes d5, and black, as often as not, responds by taking back the pawn with his knight, like so. We can see here that the Lichess engine is recommending that I move my pawn to e4, which is in fact what I did. However, the thing with that is that I have been studying the martial defense with my man, John Watson, in a strategic chess opening repertoire for white, in which he says that it is better to play a finessing move, which is this move here, knight to f3. And then we see this series of moves here, which puts white into a comfortable position, according to John Watson, with the queen hitting the pawn up there and eyeing this nice diagonal here. But in the heat of the moment, I forgot all about John Watson's advice, even though I had read it only that day, less than a couple of hours before going over to play the game. And so I followed this Lichess line. I advanced my pawn to e4. Now, I don't think it's such a bad line because as a pub chess bluffer, I think the average pub player, or the average player who doesn't play regularly in clubs, seeing his knight under attack will be more likely to move it to b6 than back to f6. There's something about moving a piece back which the average player probably doesn't like very much. And in fact, that is how this game played out. Dr. M responded by moving his knight up there to b6. But I just want to show you what can happen if he moves his knight, as Lichess recommends over here, moves the knight back to f6. In fact, according to John Watson again, black can get some counterplay with this combination. It goes something like this. It's this e5 hit here by black, which is the key. White takes the pawn, black takes the queen, the king takes the queen, and the knight comes down here. And this knight is now hitting this dangerous pawn, this pawn here, which is rather dangerous, offering or giving a forking the king and capturing the rook, or threatening to come up here and take this pawn. Now, in fact, white has a way to respond to this, and I talked about it in more detail in a video I made on the martial defense over on my other blog, easychesstips.com. So I won't go into that in any more detail here. Suffice it to say, that was a line which did not occur in this game. There is another little line here as well, in which white advances the pawn. When black hits down here, white advances the pawn there, and black brings his bishop out, again hitting this vulnerable pawn down here with the aim of bringing the knight down here and achieving a nice fork. So none of that happened in our game because black retreated his knight to b6. And this is how the game played out. It made a very comfortable game for me, actually. So this E4 move, it's not a bad move at all. It's just one that John Watson doesn't favour. He favours the F3. Sorry, it's the F3 finesse. What this series of moves here, you can see that the advantage bar is moving in my direction, allows me to do is build the ideal setup for white in a sense. We have now the bishops come out, and this is the classic setup for white. Strong center. The pawns are both doubly supported with the queen backing up here. They're supported by the knights and the bishop, and the king is ready to castle. You can see the advantage bar now is quite strongly in white's favor, and it continues in this way through the game. I castled. A knight comes out. Now, when the knight came out, I was expecting something like a knight-queen combination down here. And so to counter that, I placed my pawn there on A3. But to my surprise, that didn't happen. What happened instead was a queenside castle. Now, I've already castled on the king's side, and I'm nicely set up in this nice defensive position. Seeing this castle come in here, I changed what my expectations changed for this game, and I suddenly thought I have to focus now completely on the queenside attack. It is likely with this pawn structure that the queenside attack would have come anyway, but things speeded up with the king over on the queen side. So the first thing I did was try to dislodge a knight, that nice strong defending knight, by advancing my queen's pawn, or my d pawn. You can see Lichess is recommending that this knight takes the pawn, but that didn't happen. Instead, Dr. M moved his knight away, and Lichess is recommending that I take the knight with my knight. But I didn't do that immediately. I attacked the queen instead, and the queen moves back to d7. And then I took the knight, and there was an exchange there. And now I begin to move on the king's side, bringing my pawn up here. And you can see the advantage bar is now well in white's favor. Black is on the back foot. His knight is under attack. Lichess is recommending that he gets rid of this central pawn with the knight. That is what happened, and we have this exchange now. Black picks up the a pawn with a check. White picks up the a pawn with a check. Black moves his king over. The knight is protected by this bishop, so knight comes back anyway to b5, and rook moves over. We then have this check here. The king moves in, and instead of moving my bishop out, I kept moving up my pawn. Now, I was kind of expecting that this would happen. Again, it's the pub chess bluffer mentality here, not necessarily expecting the best move. The rook takes. So now if I move my bishop out, that sends a check in. The rook checks the king. So the king whips up here to b7, attacking the rook. I pulled my rook all the way back. My feeling at this stage was that I was in a great position, and I would just take things easy. I'd retreat my rook back out of trouble. Probably not the best move, but it was an easy move for me to find. C6 comes in. I move my knight back as well. So I'm just sort of regrouping, perhaps not in the best way. The advantage bar has stayed solidly in my favor, so there's nothing too much to worry about in this game. Black is looking for a way to get his king out of trouble. I bring my queen up. Nice little battery, but it's not really needed over there. It's got my queen's got her eye on this king over here. D4 comes in, attacking my knight. Yeah, there are several options, but I go for a hit on the king. The pawn cannot take the knight because the queen is eyeing the king. And so the king retreats. The bishop now checks as recommended there by light chess. The king comes to e8, bishop to f5. Bishop hops in and exchange. The knight comes in here to say check, forking. The knight is now forking the king and the queen. So the rook takes, the bishop picks up that rook. There is an attempt to get some counterplay on the queen side. The rook comes over here, looking at this nice line here. Bishop comes over. But now the bishop coming in here, so black is looking for ways to try and stave off inevitable defeat. But by moving the bishop over there to free up the rook on this side as well, simply lets the queen in with that check there, because the pawn is suddenly unguarded. So the king comes up, bishop comes up and gobbles up another free piece. The rook comes over, we get in a check, the king hops up there, we get in another check, the king hops over there. We're preparing now, pick up a pawn, and preparing to hit the king. G6, a check, the king comes down, the queen gobbles up the queen. It's pretty much the end of the game. That pawn is not going to make it to the back row. We have a discovered check. The king hops down, the queen comes down with check. It's covered, but it's no good. It's checkmate. So it emerged from what I think is a fairly common response to e4 in the martial defense, that black will very often, at a lower level of chess, black will very often play in the opposite direction. And in this situation, white now has a nice central advantage, and white should have a comfortable game. And that's how things played out in this game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this little review of my latest game with Dr. M on Wednesday, the 23rd of January. That's all from me, David Hurley of davidhurleyinjapan.com.